Welcome to Building Families, Bridging Differences, a family law journey.
Hello, and welcome back to Building Families, Bridging Differences, a family law journey with Shelly Cooley. Shelly is a certified family law specialist and the founder of the Cooley Law Firm in Las Vegas. She focuses exclusively on family law, helping clients with divorce, custody, adoption, and assisted reproduction. She's also known for her compassion, straightforward, and kind approach to serving her clients. I'm Lisa Mosby, your host, and today we're talking about parenting plans in Nevada. Shelly will explain how they're structured, what courts look for, and how families can create schedules that support their children's well-being. Thank you so much for joining me today, Shelly.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Shelly, to start, could you explain what a parenting plan is or is not, and how we accomplish that for someone creating it the first time?
Absolutely. So, the purpose of a parenting plan is it is a framework for parents to share custody of their children. It outlines legal custody provisions, what those specifics will look like, and it also addresses what the physical timeshare as well as holiday and vacation schedule will look like.
And then, Shelly, Nevada courts want parenting plans to focus on stability and the child's best interest, probably true of all states, but what kinds of day to day schedules tend to work well for different types of families?
Well, when we're talking about a custodial schedule, we want to consider a number of different factors. One being the age of the child or children, that's very important. Also, parents' work schedules and availability to care for their children. Um, when we're looking at young children, let's say pre elementary school age, then shorter time away from each parent is going to be helpful. So, in that circumstance, we might talk about a 2 to 5 schedule or a schedule where we are a revolving schedule where we do 2 days, 2 days, 2 days, 2 days, and just continue alternating. Um, Once we are looking at elementary school age children, then we can talk about longer times away from each parent. And that's when you might have a week on, week off schedule, or that type of a schedule that might work best when we're talking about a joint physical custody schedule.
And I can only imagine, but holidays and school breaks have to be emotional topics with your clients. How do parents usually approach dividing those special occasions in a way that feels fair and predictable?
Well, what I tell my clients and remind them about when we are discussing holiday schedules is that the courts, if the parties are unable to agree, the courts will adopt their default holiday visitation schedule, which is essentially parents alternate every holiday. Depending on the type of work each parent does, it may just be major holidays that are being alternated, or it could also be major holidays as well as 3-day holiday weekends, individual holidays. And then they have default schedules as far as vacation plans as well. So I remind them that if they're unable to agree, then the court will print out their default schedule, attach it to their parenting plan, and that's going to be the schedule they follow without giving any input.
So calming them down emotionally through this discussion, how do you have to step in and kind of coach them along with it? It's one thing to set the rule and say we need to do this, but I don't know that that always calms down the emotional component that's involved.
You are correct. And I know, especially when folks are newly separated or divorced, um, i- i- not getting to spend every major holiday with their child is extremely difficult and sad. And what I remind parents is that the holiday may be on this specific date, but the importance is to create the memories with your child. So let's talk about Christmas. That's a major holiday. A lot of people in the United States celebrate Christmas. So if if the other parent has Christmas, then you can celebrate your Christmas holiday with the children before Christmas Day or after Christmas Day. I grew up in a firefighting family. My dad worked his schedule regardless of how the holidays fell. So we celebrated Christmas when my dad was off work, and that was our Christmas holiday, and it was okay. We were just fine. So I think the important thing is to make the memories with your children. And I often share that personal experience because people do get very attached to the actual date, but really it's the time with your children and the memories that matter. So trying to help support them to let go of the attachment to the specific date and instead think about it as I'm spending, this is my day to celebrate Christmas with my children or my child, and I'm going to enjoy this time with them, and we're going to make special memories. So,
Decision making authority is another major part of parenting plans. How do parents usually divide the responsibilities for education, medical care, and other major life choices?
decision making authority is what makes parenting parenting, right? This is how we shape and mold and help our children become who they're going to be. And courts believe that parents should share in that decision making. When parents have trouble agreeing or they're a high conflict situation, sometimes courts will award one parent decision making authority over, let's say, medical decisions, and one parent decision making authority over education. That doesn't mean that both parents aren't involved in that process. What it means is that if the parents don't agree, then the parent who is awarded that authority is essentially the tiebreaker. So even if that situation occurs, parents are supposed to discuss and attempt to agree to what is in their best interests of the child.
I noticed you said discuss, and sometimes communication expectations can make or break those parenting arrangements. We've all seen it. What kinds of communication guidelines help reduce conflict and keep both households on the same page?
I think that when we have parents who have a healthy co parenting relationship, i- whatever is going to work best as to how they've communicated regarding their children is what they should continue doing. For parents who have issues communicating, maybe there's a mismatch between what one parent says and what one parent thinks the other parent says. Putting those communications in writing is going to be helpful and to save a lot of time and energy on and probably headaches on, I thought this is what we agreed to. And then the other parent says, no, that's not what I agree to. So there are, you can text. So texting is a way that parents can communicate. And there are also email. So you can email. And then for parents that are having a lot of issues communicating, there are parenting apps that keep a record of communications and they are not alterable. And that assists when there is I guess, a mismatch between what one parent said and what the other parent thinks the parent said and what the agreement is. You can look back on in those email communications that are in the parenting app that have a record of all of the communications, and you can help interpret what the actual agreement was.
And Shelley, many families want flexibility, but too much flexibility can cause issues. How do you talk to parents about balancing structure with the reality of the shifting schedules?
What I tell parents is that your parenting plan is what you use when communication breaks down and you're unable to agree. So this is your worst case scenario fallback. When things are going great, co-parent however you choose. But when we have an issue, use your parenting plan as the fallback. And the more detailed your parenting plan is, the better it's going to be as far as resolving issues that may come up in 5, 10 years down the road. Your parenting plan is supposed to grow with your family. So you're not going to necessarily revisit it every single year or even every couple of years. With a parenting plan that is detailed enough, you should be able to follow your parenting plan, a single parenting plan, from the time your children are young until the children emancipate.
And I'm sure that that includes some of those extracurricular activities or transportation and school logistics. Those can all be complicated in shared custody situations. What should parents think about when planning for those practical details that are going to happen in the future?
Right. Well, when we're talking about extracurricular activities, we've got two different issues. We have the costs of those activities, and then we also have the activities themselves. So, the way that the courts look at extracurricular activities is that first, if a parent is going to enroll a child in an extracurricular activity, if it is going to occur on the other parent's time at all, then there needs to be agreement between the parties. And if there is agreement between the parties, then there can also be agreement between as to who pays for the activity. Oftentimes, if the parties mutually agree to this activity, then both parents will equally share in the cost. That's not always the way it is, but that is often the way it is. And as far as transportation goes, there's a couple different ways that that can go depending on schedules. If one parent works and gets off in the evening and the other parent, gets off at 2 p.m. and you have an activity at 3, well, it's going to make the most sense for the parent who gets off work at 2 o'clock to get the child to the activity. So, that is one of the situations that we need to look at is just practically speaking, what do the parties' schedules look like? Some other arrangements are if one parent enrolled the child in the activity, then that parent is responsible for getting the child to and from the activity. And then you also have agreements where when both parents mutually agree that the child participates in an activity, then each parent gets the child to the activity during their timeshare.
And that changes throughout the years as the kids grow. Um, Maybe jobs change for parents. So it's really all about that flexibility. And I know some parents agree on the big picture, but struggle with the smaller pieces of the plan. What approaches help them to settle the specifics without adding unnecessary tension?
Well, I think oftentimes when we have a situation like that, it's important to have a conversation. And sometimes folks need to pause the conversation, take a step back, and then come together again and further discuss. I think it's also helpful, and with my clients, I'm always available for questions. So, once you're a client of mine, I consider you to always be a client of mine. So let's say that we do a divorce, we have your parenting plan, and then in a couple years that, you and your co-parent are having issues agreeing upon something. I am absolutely open to my client contacting me. We have a conversation, and usually in a 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes 30-minute conversation, I can help explain what the court would likely do if it were to be brought to the court and the court had to address this issue. Um, and what some possible outcomes would be, as well as just based on my experience, what I think would be a reasonable resolution of the issue. So sometimes it's just taking some time apart, coming back together and discussing. And then also, if you're unable to get over the hurdles, so to speak, contact your attorney and get their input to help facilitate resolution.
So, Shelley, here's where I want to wrap this up today. For a parent who might be getting ready to propose or review a parenting plan, what information or guidance would you like to leave with them today?
I think that when parents are talking about parenting plans and what is best for their children, that's really what parents have to think about is, what do my kids need? What is going to work best for our family, meaning both parents? And what schedules are going to be most workable for us long term? And to not worry about the labels, and to take a practical look at your schedule, your children's schedule, and make decisions with your children's needs front and center.
Well said. Thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you.
And to our audience, thank you for listening to Building Families, Bridging Differences, a Family Law Journey. To learn more or schedule a consultation with Shelley, visit CooleyLawLV.com. And remember to like, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who may need it. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.